Hello, 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 hello. Welcome. We are here. It is Wednesday night at 8:30, and I am excited to give you an update. What we're going to cover tonight, for those of you that have been following my posts, we are in day 10 of the experiment that began a week ago Sunday. And to kind of catch everybody up to speed, because I know everybody does not plug in week in and week out. The experiment was something that I came across basically by accident. And as many of you have witnessed or experienced, there's just been a lot of chaos that's been going on in this country. It's been going on for years, but it's been reaching this ridiculous momentum basically because of the midterm elections and all the stuff that was going on in the political arena. And so between the media, politicians, celebrities, you name it, everybody's got everybody else all stirred up. So I'm going to preface this by saying these videos are not political. I have no political slant. They're not religious. I'm not here to try to coerce anybody in anything. What we're going to talk about tonight are just some facts and, more importantly, some realities that have gone on. So anyway, as I've been watching my personal news feed, back and forth, positive, negative, and by the way, a lot of people's advice to me is, "Oh, I don't look at any negative." You know what? I don't live my life in a bubble. So for me, I'm not bugged or bothered when I see negativity. I'm intrigued by it, and the reason I say that is there are two types of negativity, and we're going to talk about that during this live cast. But what I want to get at is I witnessed people that I know personally, people that I would consider to be intelligent, good-hearted, possessing common sense, begin to do and say the most ridiculous, stupid, uncharacteristic things that were not in alignment with who they are. So it began to intrigue me. What is it that's causing someone that I know personally, so not someone that just randomly pops up here and there, or some celebrity that you don't know what they're like, off camera. These are people that I know personally doing and saying things that were ridiculous. And what I recognized very quickly was they weren't thinking. They were literally repeating programming, parroting messages that they were getting from either Fox News or CNN or some form of media outlet or something that a celebrity did or said. And I realized that's how bad it's gotten, that people have stopped thinking for themselves, they've lost touch, and they're literally being manipulated. So that helped me to decide, okay, I can't change the world, I can only change myself. But so many people talk. I decided, you know what, I'm going to actually try something. I'm going to enact something. So I went to my personal Facebook friends list. I had over 4,000 people on there. And I said, let's see what I can do interacting with them. Now, here's the challenge. Everybody on here is going to, on some level, have to admit to what I'm about to say. I didn't really have 4,371 friends. I had contacts. So these are people that on some level, at some point, either saw something about me or my profile and sent me a friend request, or they did or said something that popped up that led me to send them a friend request. So we were mutual friends on Facebook, but not necessarily quote unquote real friends. So that being said, it wasn't a bunch of cold market spamming or cold canvassing. These are people that I had some form of a connection with. But here's the irony of it. As I began to reach out to the people, in this group, I crafted a very, very simple, non-threatening, no pressure message. And it basically said, hi, we haven't spoken in a while. I'm reaching out to you because there's been an overwhelming amount of negativity on my Facebook timeline. And I'm reaching out to everybody that I'm connected with to see if you'll participate in a little experiment. And here it is. Could you do me a favor and just name One thing, just one thing that you see as positive in the world. It can be anything. Thanks so much, and I will give you my answer when you respond back. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. For those of you that are watching, would you give me either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, a yes or a no, if you agree that that is a very easy, non-threatening, no pressure request to simply connect with people that I've already connected with and simply say, hey, do you have anything that you've experienced, anything that you have done, seen, experienced that was positive? Because I'd like to counterbalance the negative stuff that's out there. Now, thank you. I see a bunch of you are responding, so I appreciate that very much. Here's the funny thing. So here are all of the categories of responses that I got. And I want to preface this. I have an extremely diverse timeline and friends list. I'm not one of those people that cuts people off if you don't agree with me. I prefer to have people around me that think differently than me, not that are antagonistic, arrogant jerks, but I openly accept and willingly welcome differing opinions, because it's the only way I'm going to expand my perspective. It's the only way I'm going to grow. It's the only way I'm going to evolve. And I'm mature enough at this stage of my life to say I'm not always right. I don't know everything. So I welcome the other perspective. And here's why. If I only surround myself with people who think like me, I'm screwed. I want you all to think about that for a second. If you only surround yourself with people who agree with you and think like you get put into a box. And that's what happens to a lot of people. So back to my experiment. I have every demographic that you can think of. So I'm going to throw some out there just so that you can understand. It's male, female. It's white, Caucasian, African American, Asian American, Hispanic. It's liberal, conservative. It's Republican, Democrat. It's across the board. I don't ban anybody. I don't cut anybody off just because of their views or their thoughts. The whole point of this was I wanted to get feedback. So in doing that little experiment, here's what I found. Over 60%, this is a crazy number, over 60% of the people that I reached out to responded, which I thought was pretty cool. Because you don't normally get that kind of response or participation. And when I do the final tally, which I don't have the final tally, because as recently as today, I was still sending messages out to people whose last name begin with an S. So if you have a last name that is T, U, V, W, X, Y, or Z, I haven't even gotten to you yet. And that's going at 300 to 400 a day, okay, for the last 10 days. But the reason I got delayed is I ended up having engagement with a very high number of people, which is what I wanted. I wanted engagement. So I'm going to continue going. But the bottom line is I'm halfway through the S's, well over 3,000, closer to 4,000 people. And it's over 60%. It could be over 70% response rate, which I think is awesome. So that shows a lot of willingness to interact and participate. Now, of the groups that did not respond, over half of them never even got my message. If you use Facebook Messenger, you know that you can tell when somebody has read your message. So I took great comfort in the fact that there's a high number of people that either don't use Messenger at all or don't use it frequently. And it's only been the last week and a half. So there are people that maybe didn't even get to Messenger, or they have so many messages they don't, whatever it is. I was comfortable with the fact that over 50%, probably closer to 75% of the people that received my message never saw it, never read it. That's not even a failure to respond. That's a failure to even see it's in there. So now the first real category are the people that read my message and then deliberately chose not to respond. I look at that first group right there as my second round reach out. I'm going to let things go for another week or two, and then I'll reach out to that group because I'll find out what was the reason you didn't respond. And if they don't respond with an answer, then I will at that point remove them from my friends list, because I do want to have healthy interaction. I want to create as much of a positive environment and a positive ripple effect. And I can't do that if somebody will read that message and then deliberately say, I'm going to just choose to ignore it. So I'm going to give it another week or two because I want to allow for whatever might be happening in their lives. But I'm also going to say, you read it, respond to it. Now, that being said, the other group, which is the 60 to 70% overall responded, here's the cool number. Over 95%. I could probably count on both hands the negative responses that I got. There were a handful of people, and I won't ever call anybody out or name you, but there were a handful of people that actually went out of their way to send me back a nasty message, which I had to just laugh at that because I'm thinking, how bent and twisted do you have to be to get that message of, hi, how are you doing? It's been, quite some time since we last spoke, and I'm trying to, overcome and counterbalance the negativity on my Facebook timeline. Would you be willing to send me something positive? I would respect the person that just ignored it, but to actually read that and then send back, this is stupid, I don't want to participate, I just thought to myself, wow. So what did I do with that group? I'm praying for that group because they're having some massive negative crap going on in their lives, that they're that angry, bent, and twisted that they had to go out of their way to deliberately send a negative message back. So that's the small group. That's probably less than 20 people out of the 3,000 to 4,000. The rest, which we're going to call it 95 to 99%, had really awesome responses. And I'm going to have examples of that next week. But what I wanted to talk about right now is the fact that so many of you were being honest and transparent and vulnerable with your responses. So in that respect, here's a large category, and I'm being serious about this. There were an awful lot of people that responded to me. John, I've been looking at your message for the last couple of hours, the last 2 days, and I can't come up with anything positive. How sad is that? That's the group I was hoping to reach. The person who responded back, life sucks right now, I'm dealing with, and what they basically did at that point was they asked for help. They asked, hey, I'm struggling right now to find anything positive. And what I then began to do was interact with those people. And you know what I found? I found that they were neck deep. They weren't knee deep. They weren't waist deep. They were neck deep in the news. They were neck deep in all of that chaos. And I'm being blunt when I say this. Some of you know me personally. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I'm not liberal. I'm not conservative. I do not subscribe to the nonsense that's been going on in our media for years. And let's just keep it simple. The last 2 years of President Obama and the first 2 years of President Trump have been maybe the worst in history for media manipulation and just negative programming, including last night during the elections. I was watching people tweet and comment, and they were just, it was like watching a football game. It was like watching people rooting for their favorite college or pro football team, screaming and yelling after every play. And I realized that's what's happening to so many people. They've been deprived of the most important thing in the world, which is hope. They're now taking the media, taking the narratives. And again, I don't care whether it's CNN, Fox, your local, it doesn't matter. You're hearing other people dictate whether or not you should be happy, whether or not you should have hope. So the message tonight is very, very real. It's do yourself, don't do it for me, do yourself the favor. And if you are right now spending far too much time, which I will say is virtually any time at all is virtually too much time, listening to the news. Stop. It's not serving any purpose. It is the biggest common thread amongst the folks that responded back, that they were feeling depressed, that they were feeling anxious, that they were feeling overwhelmed, that they were feeling a sense of despair. And I'm not talking these are people that were suicidal. I'm talking about people that were still functioning, but actually admitted to me that they were struggling hard to find something positive. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm asking you for feedback. Does that message make sense? Does it make sense what I'm basically trying to communicate right now? That we as an entire population, as a society, have been unwittingly, unknowingly, and subconsciously programmed and manipulated into a sense of despair, a sense of hopelessness, a very high sense of anxiety, depression, fear, and it's not real. It is an illusion. It is not real, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But I'm asking if anybody can comment. Does that message resonate? Do you understand what I'm saying when I express that we've got to unplug from the news? Because for the other responses that I got, it was amazing. It was amazing at how many people literally, when I say instantly, I'm saying within 30 minutes of me sending the message to them, because it's all time-stamped, responded back to me with, I woke up today, I'm healthy, I love my family, and I went to work, and on my way to work, and they shared an experience. So many people were sharing with me things that they either did themselves as a pay it forward positive, or something that they witnessed from others. Many people shared with me charitable organizations, folks that were talking about how they witnessed people in their town rallying around different incidents or tragedies. During the course of this experiment, we had the situation that occurred in Pittsburgh at the church or the synagogue. And so there are just so many things. Many folks were talking about how their neighbors got together when there was a fire on the street and the family lost everything, and all the neighbors who didn't really know each other got together and donated food, donated clothes, donated things to that family to help them get back on their feet while the insurance was being worked out. So there was an overwhelming, a tremendously huge, overwhelming positive response that crossed the board. Some people responded with things as simple as, I went outside and I watched the sunrise, or I'm watching the change of the seasons. One person responded back, dogs. I love dogs. And they said that they go to the shelter at least once a week, if not more, to spend time with the animals in the shelter. Many people sent me messages saying that the love that they see in the world, they get by investing their time, donating their time at nursing homes, just to spend time with folks that are there that don't have friends and family that visit. So there's so much positive, so much good, so much love out there. But you know what the problem is? It doesn't get publicity. It's not sound bites for the news media. It's not high traffic or high profile breaking news for people to get all amped up about. So we have so many positive things going on a daily basis that are almost ignored because they're taken for granted, because it just is how things should be. And I hope some of you are right now thinking, you know what, John, that's just how things should be. And that's my point. If we could get back to the mindset that we are all one in society, that we are all brothers and sisters, that we all are one community, that we all do share the same space. If we can get back to that mindset, instead of looking at the labels that divide us, because they're artificial. They're 100% artificial. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says. But the minute that we're born, the minute that I was born, I was given a first name, I was given a last name. So that's divisive right there. I was given a nationality, Costino. You know it's Italian, so I was a little Italian Dago. Half Irish, half Italian. My parents both went to the Catholic Church, so I was automatically Catholic. My parents were Republican, so I was automatically in a Republican household. My dad was a physician, so I was already in a white collar, not blue collar. So think of all the different things that we were divided by that we had nothing to do with. I'm talking about at birth, at 6 months old, at 2 years old, at 5 years old. I wasn't making choices. These are all things that I was born into, and that was the reality that I got. I mean, I didn't choose Southern New Jersey. That's where I was born. So we all have these labels that are legitimate and real because we were given them, and that was our entire programming. But when I say they're illusions, what's the difference? I always refer to my good friend Dr. Scott Speed, because Scott reached out to me, I guess it's probably three and a half years ago now, when he was putting together a live podcast called Race Haven. And it was simply a blog and a live radio broadcast designed to try to bridge the gap between, as he calls them, European American and African Americans here in the United States of America. Because at the time, there was great diversity and divisiveness causing problems. So when he reached out to me and asked if I would co-host the radio show, I told him absolutely. But here's the irony of it. Scott and I share so much in common, except he's African American, I'm European American, which others will refer to as white and black. And it was the prevailing question that came from the audience the first 6 months. What's your angle? Why are you here? And it didn't matter how many times I said it until people finally decided to accept it. But they were looking at all the things that were different between Scott and I as the co-hosts of the radio show. And I answered the same way every single week. Here's why I'm here, and here's why Scott and I are like this. Not because we shared the same political or religious views. There were 50 or more percent of the time we had differing opinions, but we always had a very healthy mutual respect for each other, for each other's perspectives, and we allowed healthy dialogue. But here's what we did share in common, and it was the common thread that still locks us together. We're both dads. We were both fathers with young children. And we both had one goal: to do our part to heal the pain, to bridge the huge gap, and to try to create a better tomorrow for our children so that they could have a healthier, happier, safer society than we were delivering to them right now. And, Scott and I talked privately plenty of times, and we mentioned it, publicly on the podcast, and I've mentioned it here. The thing that breaks my heart is children, all of children, start off innocent. When my son was 3, 4, 5, 6, and I would take him to the park, all he wanted was a bunch of kids to play with. That's all. When we would get close to the park, he'd lean in and he'd say, "Dad, I hope there's a lot of kids there. I hope there's a lot of kids there. I hope there's a lot of kids there." And when we got to the park, there was always a lot of kids there. He hopped out of the Jeep and he took off. And he didn't care whether they played tag or they played zombie tag or they played whatever. But you know what he did not do? He did not go, "Oh, there's boys, there's girls, there's white kids, there's Mexican kids, there's Chinese kids, there's black kids." He didn't do that because he didn't see that. Those are all labels that get stamped on us. Those are all bias and prejudice and discriminatory things that are taught. They're not inherent. And because I don't subscribe to them, my son still doesn't think that way. But it's really important on every level that we make the conscious choice, the conscious decision to come together, and more importantly, to seek. It was my post earlier today. To seek to truly, when we're listening, listen with deliberate intention to understand other people. I will simply say this. I always, when someone is talking to me, and I'll be honest with you, I think it pisses a lot of people off because I don't think they pay attention to the stuff they say as much as I pay attention to the stuff they say. So think about that for a second. There are people that actually get frustrated with me because I pay closer attention to their words than they do. But I pay close attention to your words, not to try to trip you up, not to use them against you, but to understand you. Because until I really understand you, because we make assumptions all the time, we pass judgments all the time if we don't deliberately and intentionally seek to understand someone. So I deliberately seek to understand. So when I'm listening, I'm paying close attention because there's no way in the world I'm ever going to have a healthy dialogue, and there's very, very remote chance that you're going to understand me if I don't first understand you, if you don't understand you. So I'm not sure what I'm going to title this, but my closing thought is this. To those of you, and by the way, when I said I've had a lot of engagement, I've had positive engagement from people that really and truly said, John, I love this idea. I want to start paying it forward. And I can't tell you, it's probably up to over 50 people now, which think about this. Think of how cool this is. If I reached out to between 3,000 and 4,000 people, and there's now, we're just going to call it 50. It's more than that, but let's call it 50. 50 people from my group got so inspired. They said, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm now going to reach out to my entire Facebook family. And let's just say that they don't have 3,000 or 4,000. Let's just say that they just have 500. A small fraction, 500. If 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people reached out to 500 or more people with the same type of experiment, the same type of message, to say, hey, I want to create a positive ripple effect throughout Facebook. Could you do me a favor? And just respond with something positive that you either witnessed or experienced or something positive that you see in the world. How powerful is it? 10 times 500? 5,000. 50 times 500? It's 25,000 people that message will reach. That's not even taken into effect if any of them decide to pass it on. So I am ecstatic and grateful for all the people who participated with me and decided to pay it forward. I'm equally grateful to the people that responded back, honestly, John, I can't find anything to be positive about. I'm struggling right now to find anything that's positive. I'm okay with that. And like I said, that ultimately is who I wanted to talk to. Because if you're already happy, you're already spreading, positive light and good energy and vibration out there into the world. But if you're struggling right now, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're dealing with some sense of anxiety or feeling overwhelmed, that's what I'm here for. That's what we all should be here for each other. So I'm going to continue because, like I said, I'm only halfway through the S's. So if you have not responded and you go to Facebook Messenger and you say, hey, you know what? John can tell that I read and didn't respond. You're welcome to respond because I will give another update next Wednesday night. But the biggest thing is I just wanted to share tonight that the overwhelming response has been extremely positive. And I want to report that. I want to spread that message because there's not enough people talking in public about all of the positive stuff that's happening. So I'm going to wait until next Wednesday, and I'm going to give lots of examples of what's going on. And between now and next Wednesday, maybe some of you will come up with something cool or some type of an experiment or some type of an experience share it with me so I can share it with our whole community next Wednesday. So until next Wednesday, this is John Costino saying thanks so much for being here. Thank each and every one of you for participating. If you're part of the group that looked at it and said, I'm not going to respond, I'm not mad at you. Like I said, whatever your reason is, it's good enough for me. I'm not here to change the world. I'm here to do the best I can, to be the best version of myself, and to put as much positive energy out there that I can to lift up those that are in need. So until next Wednesday, God bless, be safe, have a great night. Bye-bye, everyone.